Good morning, everyone. Do you have your coffee? I got my coffee. Before we get started, I have to say thank you to some people. I have to say thank you, Stephanie, so much for the coffee money. I appreciate you. And thank you, Margaret. And thank you, Miss Bertha. And thank you, Gilda. And thank you, Shirley. We've heard from Shirley. Child, you had us so worried in this house. I was thinking about you the other day, as a matter of fact, and I was saying to myself, I hope that I am not the kind of person that comes off like I only want to hear from somebody unless they are donating to the library pantry, donating to the platform, because I in no way, shape, or form feel that way about my supporters. I don't feel that way. My husband was asking after you, and he said, well, what's going on with Shirley? I haven't heard you call her name out in a minute. I haven't seen you. I said, I've been so worried about her. I said, but you know what? We just going to keep her in prayer. We're going to uphold her in prayer because you know what? Life happens. You know what I'm saying? Life, it has a way of happening. And when life happens, this is still a safe, welcoming, loving space for you when life is happening to you. Okay? So never feel like you have to come here and be on a certain term in order to be present. Never that. Never that. I love you on your good days and your bad days, and good times and bad times. That's what this platform is about. Okay? It's about us being in community and supporting each other and loving on each other. Okay? With that being said, you know who I struggle with? I struggle with elitist black people. I struggle so hard with elitist black people. Listen. Being in community with black people is something that, it doesn't come easy for a lot of us. And for a lot of different reasons. And one of those reasons, big reasons, is anti-blackness. Because even black people can experience anti-blackness, because of our internalized racism. I know that word comes up here a lot, but internalized racism has done a lot of harm to black people. And there's so many layers that we have to peel back, that we must peel back in order to get that default set to blackness. And I just want to help you all remember that we have massively successful black people, whether they are singers or dancers or actors or doctors or teachers or lawyers or nurses or realtors or whatever, has field you have gone into that has brought you success. But what we can't do is, once we reach a certain pinnacle of success, is we cannot forget the barriers that has been placed deliberately in the pathway to the success of other black people. And I think that y'all forget that a lot. Y'all forget how racism and redlining and the crack epidemic and gun violence and poverty, just poverty alone, what that does to black people within the black community. And a lot of you walk around with this attitude like, well, if I can do it, they can too. People are dealing with so much trauma in our community. First off, let's start with the black church. Most of us have grown up in the black church. And whether you want to admit it or not, church has done a lot of damage, a lot of harm to black people. Christianity, this religion. And if this is who you are, and this is the God that you believe in, and that's the book you believe in, that's your business. But this is my opinion. I think that Christianity has done a lot of harm to black people. And a lot of elitism in that arena too. Um, and we were taught things like pray it away and to have all this faith without doing any real work. And that's harmful. And we were taught that what stays in the house, what happens in the home stays in the home. So you have all of these victims of childhood trauma like rape and molestation. And you've got all these women who have been caught up in domestic violence situations, who have been told in more ways than one to protect the violator and not the violated. You know what I'm saying? Go pray on it. Give it to God. You know, God will see you through it. You know, just pray to Jesus. And, you know, and we have been, when our kids are not on the right path, we get told to pray, you know, just, I'm going to pray. And there's no real action, you know. And there's all this trauma within the Black community. There's so many things that stop us. And we haven't even gotten to racism yet. So many things that we need to work on as a people. But we're not really doing that work because we're scared of the work. We won't own the fact that we need to do the work. And we keep being told that we got to pray on it instead of actually really fucking do something about it. Praying on it, that's just a savvy way of casting off responsibility for the fact that we need to be doing our part within our community. We need to be having boots on the ground doing real work. We need to tell on a predator. We need to hold these pastors, if you're going to go to church, accountable, because they are not God. They are a man. And most of them are taking advantage of the Black community. Used to be where the church, you could go to the Black church and the church would help you pay your light bill, pay your rent, feed you, clothe you. We're sitting up acting like right now in 2025, there's not hyperinflation going on. Eggs costing $10. And y'all act like y'all don't understand why people can't pay their rent, why they're struggling to pay their rent. The cost of rent in America is creating more and more and more homeless people. But y'all have adapted the mentality and the mindset of the enemy, the pull yourself up by the bootstraps mentality. And y'all force other Black people to exist in that. Y'all hold them to that same level of accountability. And you can't. Being Black, knowing that there are obstacles put in our pathway, and then faulting other Black people because they have not been able to navigate that the way that you've been able to navigate it successfully, and then looking down your nose at them is wild business. It is. And it's anti-Black as fuck. That shit is anti-Black. I'm going to tell you, I used to work in homeless advocacy. And when I tell you that I met sisters, I worked in a women's shelter. I met sisters there that I would much rather have in my life than some of these snobby, elitist, materialistic sisters that look down their noses at people like them and me. Some Black people have had a lift up. If you didn't grow up in a 2-parent home, most likely that's kind of like a strike against you. If you only had to, could depend on one income, that's a strike. A single parent raising you. If you didn't go to college, that's a strike. You know, if you didn't have any help with homework because you had a single parent that thought it was more important to feed you, that's a strike. If you lived in a high crime area, that's a strike. If you were poor, that's a strike. Black people are born with more strikes against us than anybody. And I don't want to take nothing away from anyone who has overcome all of those obstacles and hurdles in order to have and create success and generational wealth. Speaking of which, what is good? What's good about that if you turn around and you give the wealth away to the very people that don't want to see you with it? Just because you ain't struggling no more doesn't mean that there are not other black people who are not struggling anymore. And older black people who have had all your lives, you've had all your lives to carve out something for yourself, looking down on younger people that haven't had that time. That's wild business too. They're still young. They still carving it out. They still getting it out of the mud. You don't understand that? You don't understand why a graduate student might be facing homelessness? You don't understand how that could be, how that dynamic could be. You don't understand why people might need food, why people might need help with clothing, why people might need help with shelter. As expensive as America is becoming, and let me tell you, all of these, for example, all of these white folks that are now, for the first time, experiencing things that black people have always been experiencing in America, that's because the wealth is trickling up. All the money is going up to the people at the top. And just because you still thriving right now, at one point they were too, which is why they not understanding what's going on with themselves right now. At one point they were thriving too. And just because you still thriving doesn't mean that your day not coming in this increasingly expensive America. It's becoming more and more and more expensive to live in America. Just 6 years ago, my husband and I could comfortably donate to charities. We could comfortably extend loans to friends that needed it. We can't do that shit anymore. We can't. Because everything is going up except our money. And that's holding true for a whole lot of Americans. Insurance goes up, 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 up. Property taxes goes up, 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 up. Even though you have a fixed rate 30-year mortgage, 1 minute that shit is $1,000, the next minute it's $2,000. And when your paycheck doesn't go up, guess the fuck what? When Biden gives student loan forgiveness and gives wiggle room for that for people who are in school, and then the Trump administration comes in and they snatch that away, guess the fuck what? Yes, you're going to have problems paying your rent. You're going to have problems buying food. You're going to have problems paying your car note. Because you have to adjust to shit getting worse. Just because you can afford your designer bags and your designer watches and your nice neighborhoods today doesn't mean you're going to be able to afford that shit tomorrow. And maybe instead of looking down your nose at other black people who are out here trying to survive this shit, maybe worry about how you gonna keep it all. Better yet, maybe worry about why you keep on giving it away to white folks. Black elitism, I've seen those dynamics play up close. Back when I was a kid growing up, redlining was in full. I mean, it exists now, don't get me wrong, but it was really noticeable back when I was a child, redlining. And both of my grandparents lived across the street from each other. You know, paternal and maternal. Adoptive paternal, rather, and maternal. And my maternal grandparents, poor as dirt. The other side, they had a little bit of money, and it showed. The stark differences between when I would go across the street versus when I was across the street. It went from rickety furniture, secondhand furniture that was older than I was, maybe older than my grandmother. Barely holding up. You couldn't walk past too fast because a leg might come up from up under it. Threadbare rugs, carpeting, threadbare curtains. You go across the street and it's linen pressed, fresh from the dry cleaner. Linens on the table, mahogany, cherry wood furniture, plush carpeting, crystal chandeliers, crystal decanters, fully stocked bar, floor model televisions, four-poster bedrooms, beds, and beautiful linens. It was quite a difference. And had my grandmother been able to move out of that neighborhood away from my other grandmother, she probably would have, but redlining, she couldn't. And I saw the way my one grandmother treated my other grandmother. Always looking down her nose at her. The I don't want the rest of those grandkids over here kind of thing. Dirty heathens, don't go to church on Sundays. She was elite as fuck. Financial privilege, wealth privilege does not give us the right to look down our nose at those who never even stood a chance because the obstacles put in their pathway prevented them from living the life that you live. And if you are going to be in community with Black people, you need to recognize what white supremacy and racism does to the lives of other Black people. School to prison pipelines, not Black people having cases put on them, not being able to afford a legal defense. It's so much, so many obstacles. And just because you escaped them doesn't give you the right to judge brothers and sisters who couldn't, who didn't. And shame on you for that shit. That's all I got today. That's all I got. If you would like to support the platform, I will leave my Cash App and Venmo in the comments. Shirley, I'm so glad that you are okay and I heard from you. The rest of you have an amazing day. I know it's Monday. You're going to get through it. Be righteous. Do something nice for someone. Set your default to Black. And understand that your brother or your sister might not have had the opportunities that you had. Stop looking down your nose. Sometimes it is about bad choices, but not always. And because you don't know the difference, because the difference ain't none of your business, maybe treat all your people with love and respect. Have a good one.